So welcome to the last session of the day. This is the one where we scare you witless about where things are headed if you're not already scared. So as Ramy mentioned, I have a podcast about North Korean hackers. Now, they are the ones you do not want using AI, but hopefully we will talk about that a little later. And I have to say I'm a proud alum of the IMC. I flew from North Korea to South Korea to join the conference in Seoul. So now all of you are also proud IMC alums. So I'm not a deep fake yet, but I do want to say that I am joined here today by... Is Charlie, do we have Charlie? Can we bring him up? He may be a deep fake because he is joining us virtually from East London. There he is. Not sure if he's real or not. He's a longtime TV journalist. He's the founding director of Polis. Did I say that right? Polis? A journalism think tank at the London School of Economics, where he heads up the JournalismAI project. And in that role, he's overseen several groundbreaking reports about AI in the newsroom, and so I highly encourage you to look them up and give them a read, particularly the last one that came out last year called Generating Change. They interviewed scores of media outlets in 46 different countries about AI in their newsrooms. So I look forward to him sharing some of the highlights from that report. And we're joined as well in the flesh by Art Min, who's head of partnerships at truemedia.org in Seattle. Now, True Media is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that is focused on building political deepfake detection technology, and he'll tell us more about that. So if you want, start looking for some images or video that you want him to run through that deepfake detector, and maybe we can do a live demo if we have some time. So we have heard a lot today. I don't know about you, but I am completely overwhelmed by how much things are changing. But really, this technology is moving so quickly. The future is coming at us so fast. And I guess I will probably date myself by pointing out that when I started in journalism as I was as a kindergartner, we had typewriters. We were typing on typewriters. A lot of you probably have never even seen one, except in a movie. And my first internship, my job was to clip newspaper articles and put them in manila folders, and file them away in these massive filing cabinets. Different era, and yet one that happened within my lifetime, right? So then after that we had, the internet, cell phones, smartphones, social media, and now AI. And all of these have had such a transformative way in how we as journalists both gather and disseminate information, but I would say also transformative in how we operate as people in society much more broadly. So I think that it can feel at times like it's all evolving at warp speed, and that I think somebody used a train metaphor, like the train has left the station, but hopefully we'll have a little bit of discussion today so that even though it's hurtling into the future at warp speed, that it feels like we can get on that train and make sense of it and maybe not stop it, but at least be a part of that journey. So I've asked our speakers to do two things. We're going to keep it short and sweet. I know you're all exhausted from this first incredible day here at the IMC. So I did ask them to do two things. One is to scare you all into getting your heads out of the sand and embracing this new technology, but also to reassure you that there are some of the tools, the policies, and the protocols being developed so that you can go home and do something practical with it instead of just being terrified, which I am slightly today. So we'll start. Charlie, do you want to take it away?
Great, yes, thanks very much. It's great to be with you, at least virtually. I'm not going to scare you too much, I hope. I think the most frightening aspect is, as you mentioned, that it's happening so quickly, that this technology within a year or two has become ubiquitous, it's become global. Anybody who's played with it realizes that it has a kind of magic which sometimes can feel a bit creepy or a bit overwhelming. I've been working on artificial intelligence and newsrooms for the last 6 years. I've been traveling around the world. We've been doing lots of research, but we've also been doing lots of work with those newsrooms. And last year we were focusing very much, and this year, of course, focusing very much on generative AI, ChatGPT, and all that new wave of AI that seems to be sweeping across some newsrooms at least. So what I want to do is quickly show you some evidence, rather than me talking, some evidence from our actual research. I'm just going to share some slides. As you said, I used to be a journalist, and for the last 20 years I've been at the LSE working on how technology and other forces are changing journalism. We run this JournalismAI project. Please go to our website. We have loads of resources, loads of case studies, lots of training programs that you can take independently, automatically. And we have this JournalismAI fellowship when teams of journalists from news organizations around the world work on particular challenges that they're excited about with AI. And we're supported by the Google News Initiative, and we try to bring the power of our network to help people understand AI and generative AI, but then think about how they can use it responsibly in their newsrooms. And the basic message from our work is that AI can help you, as you've heard today. And this is important, right across the news process. You see a lot of hype around the creation of content. We've seen some ghastly mistakes with people using it badly. It's really important to remember that you can use this right across the news process, from news gathering all the way to getting revenue and helping your audience enjoy the best of your journalism. It was a game changer 18 months ago when these new tools came out, and they're every day there seems to be hundreds of new applications. The difficult thing is to work out what works for you. And so we went and asked, as you mentioned, we did this big survey of news organizations around the world to ask them what they were actually doing and what they thought about it. And it was clear that most of them have experimented in some way with Gen AI. And I think it's really important that you do. And by all means, don't do it with your journalism to start with. Go and use it to find recipes. Go and use it to play around with your holiday videos, for example, so you get some confidence and you get the basic skills and you learn to enjoy it rather than being frightened. Because the fact is there's going to be more of this. And you can see that people are using it in loads of different ways. They're using it to counter misinformation, disinformation, with fact-checking, for example. They're using it to personalize content for people. The real problem people face is there's too much stuff out there. They want it to be served to them in a timely way and in a format that's appropriate, so they get a healthy news diet. And you can use it for all these great practical, often quite boring things that you have to do, like summarizing text, or perhaps translation or transcription. And then there are the slightly sexier creative uses, such as chatbots, for example. You could use them to do surveys or conduct interviews. And of course, it tells you, when people ask you questions through the chatbot, it tells you what your audience are actually interested in. And that's got to be a good thing. Loads of problems in the adoption of this, just like with everything else, when you have to adopt new technologies. Journalism is very particular to each newsroom. You all have your own ways of doing things, and you all have your own missions. The major problem is, of course, it's a technological or financial challenge. You've got to have the people and the time to actually adapt these new technologies. There are some ethical challenges, and you've heard about some of those today, but also the cultural challenges that people are always wary about this. And there has been a lot of hype about the misuse of these technologies and how they can be biased and discriminatory. Well, luckily, journalists are used to that. Journalists should be good at dealing with accuracy. Journalists should be good at dealing with balance and impartiality. So you're in a good place, if you're a good journalist, to use this well. There are those big threats. The biggest one, frankly, is that other people are going to be using it, and you're going to be left behind. And you can see that you can deal with some of these threats, like accuracy or the threat of tech dependency. if you get your act together, and there's loads of evidence in our report of how individual newsrooms are putting in things like guidelines, for example, to help their staff and to help their audiences as well, not to be frightened of this technology, because the opportunities are really there. They're there to augment good journalism. They're not there to replace your journalists. They're there to do the things that are either too boring or repetitive, or things you have to do at scale. And they're also just there to help you become more efficient. So, for example, if you do coding in your newsroom at all, it can really make you much more efficient. As an individual journalist, you don't have to wait for your newsroom to get on board. You can start using these tools, for example, like I mentioned, for translating material so that you can do better news gathering. It can create those new products and services, and that's so important. And it can be used to monitor. We're going through a big election year, aren't we? And I'm seeing some brilliant use cases for generative AI to help monitor what politicians are saying, to help make sure that you are giving your public all the right information to make their decision during that election process. But above all, I see this as a way to free up resources so that you can do more human journalism, because that is the journalism that's going to stand out. In a world where a lot of routine content will be created by AI, it's going to be the human stuff. It's going to be your judgment. It's going to be your curiosity. It's going to be those investigations that you do, or the special expertise that you have, or the human interest, your empathy, your emotional engagement with a story, with your audience. And of course, above all, it's getting out there and reporting in the real world. We've got this real problem that too many journalists are glued to their screens, they're glued to social media, and they don't get out and talk to real people, they don't get out there and witness things for themselves, because those are the things that AI can't do. So here's our sort of simple 6-step approach. Either if you're an individual journalist or if you're any kind of media organization or news organization, the first thing is get informed. You can easily do that just by going to our website. We've got an AI starter pack where you can start to explore this technology, and then broaden your AI literacy. And by that I mean not just knowing about it, but knowing how to use it. What can it do? But also, really importantly, what can't it do? Don't expect AI to be some sort of miracle machine. It is not a truth machine, as I'm sure you've heard today. It's just a way, and it's very impressive, and it appears to be intelligent, but it's not. You have to know what it can do and what it can't do. And then make sure that somebody in your newsroom is responsible for getting across this. We come into conferences like this, finding out what the best use cases are, and what are the best organizations or tools that you can use. And if you do use it, like with any technology really, don't just plug it in and play, but make sure it's appropriate. Make sure that you test it, that you repeat the tests, and that you go back and review what it's actually producing. Is there a proper return on investment? Is it really saving you time? Is it really of the quality that you need? If it's not, stop using it. But if it is using it, if it is useful, then make sure that everyone in your organization is aware of that. And as I say, draw up guidelines. There are loads of good guidelines out there. We've got loads on our website. And that really helps you to make your journalists feel much more confident about using it. And it also makes your audience feel, okay, I can trust this news organization because they are using AI, but they're doing it in a responsible way. And of course, the tech's going to change, so those guidelines might have to change over time. And so just collaborate. News organizations are used to being independent and competitive and working on their own, but with technology like this, you really need to get out there and network. And that's what you're doing at this conference, finding out who is doing the best things, what is their experience of it, what are the strategies or tactics they've adopted to make sure that it doesn't endanger standards or your business model. So that's really important. Talk to your local think tanks, your universities, your tech companies, talk to other news organizations, not just where you are, but in other regions or other countries as well. And there's loads of stuff we can do to help. If you go to our website, I mentioned we've got this starter pack where you can explore it. We do a course, JournalismAI Discovery. We've just done one in Spanish. We're about to do one in English, and later on in Arabic as well, actually. So no excuse not to get yourself informed. There's loads of examples of where people have used AI. You can see if that applies to you. We have a wonderful festival every year where you can hear people talking about their practical experience, and you can join our network. We've got over 11,000 people signed up to our newsletter, and we have a Connect Slack channel as well. So there is no excuse, as far as I'm concerned, for people to at least start on the journey. Don't rush. Don't turn over all your production suddenly to AI, because that way you'll probably screw up. But I think there is, as I said, no excuse to get on board, to find out how it fits to your particular needs. Because if you don't, your competitors will, or indeed those people producing bad journalism will be using this already. But thanks very much. That's my take.
Thank you, Charlie. I think we should have flipped the order because you didn't do a lot to scare us, but you are really like the kind Uncle AI, very reassuring and calming. So, okay, Art, it's up to you to do the scary part.
All right. Well, it's funny. Normally I'm presenting at tech conferences, which is usually comprised of introverted people, so it's a bit overwhelming being in a room full of journalists. Everyone wants to talk and debate things. But let me just say, it's really a privilege to be here with all of you and share the stage with Jean and Charlie. And given that this is a journalism conference, I did a little investigative reporting on my fellow panelists and discovered a few interesting things that I'd love to share with you all. So for starters, I don't know if you're aware, but when Charlie's not teaching or making films, he's playing professional basketball for the Nubis. I think they're a team in Romania. I'm not entirely sure. And and Jean was a trapeze artist.
That's totally true.
Yeah, before she became a journalist. And I think she's also going to be performing later tonight after dinner. So now, these are fun facts and kind of meme-like images, but as you can tell, these are deep fakes. And I created these in seconds using a tool from Civ AI, which is a nonprofit that shows concrete demos of the risks and capabilities of AI. And this is something that anyone can do today. So now, while these were made for fun, let's imagine a scenario where the same technology is used maliciously. For example, what if I'm storming a building in a government building here in Manila? Or as an armed attacker at a voting station. Imagine if I was a high-profile individual and not someone with just 126 Twitter followers. This could easily go viral on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And the thing is, while I did make these, again, using available AI tools, here are some real examples that we uncovered in our work on social media platforms that were published by influencers, key opinion leaders with massive followings to their audiences. And so not only were these deepfakes, but they also capture factually incorrect messages. And as AI advances, it's going to get harder and harder to distinguish what's real and what's fake. So this is the core issue that we're focused on at True Media. And one of the things that really caught our attention was when Microsoft, I think in 2015, published a report about saying how the average attention span is 8 seconds, correlating that to social media, algorithms, the feed, the doom scrolling. The issue is that as people come across this content, and with this short attention span, they're making very impressionable first impressions and on the media that they're consuming. And so if it's a deep fake and it's misinformation or disinformation, it could trigger impulsive behavior, which causes people to quickly share it. They may not want to verify the facts. I think in the earlier session, someone was talking about citizen reporters and how reckless they are. And so this rapid spread of deepfakes and disinformation really amplifies the core problem, which is undermining public trust in news and institutions. which also undermines credible news sources and, of course, could potentially incite social unrest and lead to real-world violence, bullying, or other forms of harm. So at True Media, this is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, which is founded by a world-class AI researcher named Oren Etzioni. We're also funded by Garrett Camp, the co-founder of Uber. And this is what we're focused on. We're building a very powerful AI system to help truth seekers, like all of you here today, detect political deepfakes. And the price tag is pretty good. It's free to use. But I also want to kind of emphasize that this is a very powerful AI system. There's about 20 of us. That's not public information, but now it is, where most of us are AI researchers and developers that are using our experiences from Google, other hot startup AI companies, Microsoft, and we're bringing all these modern technologies and experiences to build a tool that is going to be a public good. And as I mentioned, it's not a single model. This is kind of the secret sauce of how we work. We're actually a platform that uses dozens of AI models. And these are proven models that the US military or other government military organizations use for other purposes. And they're proven to detect high quality deepfakes. And the nice thing is our system's really easy to use. One of the things we did as we were doing user research and talked to tens of news organizations and fact-checking organizations was that we really want to make this seamless with the work that you guys do. And so simply all you have to do is enter a URL or upload a piece of media. We support audio, image, and video files. And then within seconds, you can get, within 90% accuracy, an outcome that determines if it's AI manipulated or generated. So now, detection is not a silver bullet. And one of the things I did want to share was like how we are partnering with journalists and fact checkers to drive real world impact. And so since our launch in April, we've collaborated with organizations such as the Deepfakes Analysis Unit in India to debunk numerous deepfakes during the Indian election. One notable example was a deepfake of a Bollywood star who was endorsing a politician. And this is an image of the actual video that was shared with us. And this was recognized by the New York Times as helping maintain the integrity of the electoral process. Another quick example is, and it's actually my favorite, was an independent European journalist reached out to us shortly after the Crocus Center bombing, where he shared that the Russian state media aired a fake clip of a Ukrainian defense minister taking credit for the bombing. And what was interesting about this was it was a real video file, but the audio was AI manipulated and generated. So using True Media, the journalists debunked this clip and very quickly was able to share their findings to notify other publications, influencers in the community. So the last thing I'd like to mention is, we've already talked about social media and the scale of the problem. I did want to impress on everyone here that there is help, and we're just one of many organizations out there that care about the integrity of journalism and media. And we also want to make sure that this technology that we're building gets to the right people. So this is a QR code to our website where if you enter your work email and also ensure that you highlight that you're from this conference, I'll make sure you get access. We're in a closed beta, and the reason why is because we really don't want to make this available to bad actors that are using this technology to test their technology. So in short, I'm here for the rest of the conference as well, so if you have any questions or find me, feel free to grab me and we can talk, even though I'm an introvert. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. So I think we may have we kind of wanted to show you what this looks like. So one of our students at the University of Hawaii, Summer, has found this link online, and we're going to plug it in. Maybe go back. Jamin, go back, and we'll show you what it looks like. Walk us through, Art. Why am I doing this?
Sure, yeah, okay, sorry. So this is the interface that you see if you log in and have access to the tool. And what is happening here is that we've actually received really great feedback on this interface because we've yet to receive a single customer complaint on asking how to do it. But you can do two things, as I mentioned. You can enter a URL, which is what Jamin has done here, or you can upload a piece of media. So if you have a video file that you received from a source or whatnot, you can just simply upload it. And then when you click Analyze, I can explain what's going on here. So as I mentioned, we take an ensemble approach to analyzing deepfakes. So we, based on the media, and without getting too technical, but things like codec, the type of file, we pick the right models to run in an efficient way, because using AI technology is expensive. And we double check the work to determine what pieces of the file are deepfake technology or AI manipulator generated. And so in this case, 4 models were used. As I mentioned, we specifically focus on political deepfakes. So we looked at the face and the voice in this video file. You don't have to play it, but and what's also kind of cool is it's not just like one image. We actually look at it frame by frame. So we're pretty meticulous and thorough in terms of determining where the AI manipulation has happened. And so if you scroll down, cool, yeah, so in this case, very high confidence that this is AI manipulated, at least on the face side. And hence, if you scroll back up, we're making the call that substantial evidence is of manipulation. One other cool part that we've just recently done on the product is if you see that section where it says verified by human analysts. So right now we have an internal team of analysts that actually do the work that most of you do, which is fact checking and verifying your sources, and so that we're able to double check in case that there is an issue where sometimes, because it's technology, it may not work or gets confused. We double check the work as well with a human analyst, and that's something also that we've been asked if other reporters or fact checkers could have access to, but we try to make sure that we do a thorough job.
This is incredible. Thank you to True Media for working on this, especially during this big election year. How long has this project been in action?
We started in December, and the product released in April.
So it's been really quick.
Yeah.
And just to give us a little bit of context, can you give us a sense for how quickly deepfakes have advanced in that time period, or even over the past year?
Yeah, one of the things that we set out to do was to really get ready for the US election in November. But a pleasant surprise was that a number of international countries have reached out and asked to use it. So specifically Mexico, India, Moldova, and other countries, they've asked us to try the tool. And even though we're in the process of building it, they said, we just don't have anything available. So, even this is not, the end state, anything you provide in terms of help would be welcome. So we've been blown away, with the response. And we haven't publicized it, but we have about 4,000 organizations that are now using the tool in various parts of the world, when, again, our mission was initially just focused on the US.
So why is this not in every newsroom? Can we envision a time or a place when we could get this in every newsroom so that it becomes part of the regular fact-checking process? And Charlie, I want to bring you into this. Is this something that you think that your newsrooms that you've surveyed would be interested in having? Would this...
No, definitely. I think, as you say, that it's a kind of basic tool, or will become a basic tool. And congratulations to Art and the team there for creating this and for spreading the good news and getting it out there. It's one of those things that, as I said, is now part of kind of routine journalism. If you're checking what is happening on social media, for example, I would say that, generally speaking, I don't think people should get so frightened about deepfakes. In themselves, of course, they're deeply disturbing. But generally speaking, the evidence seems to be that most of the deepfakes are pretty obvious. A lot of them are satirical. They're kind of joking, like me as a basketball player. Anybody who knows me knows I do not play basketball. So they're also relative. Those kind of deepfakes are quite easily checked. And the evidence seems to be that in many elections, many situations, they're not actually the main problem. If you look at the conflict in Gaza at the moment, most of the disinformation, the misuse of imagery has been real imagery, but mislabeled. And the same in elections. The UK, we've got an election at the moment, and there's been no deepfakery at all. That could be because the result is so obviously we know what's going to happen, so there's not much at stake. In other places like Slovakia and perhaps Taiwan, it was more sensitive, so that kind of false imagery is a bit more risky. But one thing I would say to journalists is, by all means, pay attention to deepfakes. It's a great story, but and a worrisome use of the tech. But don't then ignore the reality of disinformation, which has got nothing to do with deepfake and often has nothing to do with AI. It's professional politicians, it's activists, it's often even partisan journalists who are creating disinformation, much more ordinary stuff, not high tech. And that, in a way, is what is flooding the digital space online. So thank goodness we've got tools like this, where we can try to counter some of this, but also just use your common sense. If you see, an image of the Pope wearing a Balenciaga coat, first of all, you know pretty much that he doesn't do that, and it's also very, very easy to check. You just ring the Vatican and they'll tell you. Worry about it, but don't forget the other forms of disinformation.
But it can be time-consuming to look for those clues, and I don't know that we want to leave it to consumers, right? Because that leaves open the possibility that they just don't trust any of the media out there, right? So is this an opportunity, if we have a tool like this, to regain the trust of the public by saying, here's where traditional media, with the resources, with detection tools, can save you the effort of having to decipher whether this is a deep fake or not? Is this an opportunity to regain public trust?
It's an opportunity, but it's not journalism's job to clean up the internet. It's impossible. I think it's much more about making sure that you don't make the mistake of the ordinary citizen by, publicizing these things, amplifying them, or by not doing your own checking. Yes, it takes effort to check things, but you should be doing that anyway. That's part of good routine journalism, not to take things for granted, not to just take things from social media and assume that they're real. And that way you become a safe space. You become a brand that is trustworthy. So I think that's, in a sense, that's a more realistic ambition for journalism. Not to go around cleaning up everybody's social media space and so on, but just making sure that you don't make those same mistakes, that your journalism is that kind of refuge for people amidst all the noise and indeed the disinfo.
I'm going to ask one or two more questions, but I encourage you to start lining up if you've got questions as well for both of our speakers, either about True Media or about what Charlie is doing at Paulus. But I did want to pick up on something you said, Art, which was one of the reasons you're not making it so publicly available is that you don't want this technology to get into the hands of bad actors. And, I'm always thinking about North Korea. And one of the things that we saw recently was that the US government put out an advisory saying that North Korean hackers, who are the subject of my podcast, are posing as legitimate IT workers and have been hired by US companies. Is this partly what you mean? What could, okay, and not just about deepfakes, but technology more broadly, where could we go if AI gets in the hands of, say, North Koreans? Could it help them build more nuclear weapons? Where are we headed with this, both with generative AI and with AI more broadly?
Yeah, there's a saying in cybersecurity that attackers follow technology. So whatever the latest, greatest technology is that's going to allow them to create the most harm, they're going to use. So so to the point of the statement that was made earlier, or that you had mentioned about hiring North Koreans in IT departments and whatnot. As a threat model, it is something that is very realistic, which is, whether it's using job hiring apps or if you're a large corporate entity using, AI to help sift through candidates, there is a scenario where if the AI was tuned or trained, could hire criminals instead, intentionally. And so that's something that I think is a realistic, outcome of having bad AI in the market and being trained on at scale.
So do we have any questions from the audience? And, okay, go ahead.
So my question is for Charlie. Charlie, it's more on the ethical aspects of things. Now, when we enter J school, one of the things we're taught is that plagiarism is a cardinal sin in the profession. Now, when we're integrating, ChatGPT or others to generate content for us in newsrooms, and that very software has been fed our own articles, how do we balance that with the ethical? How do we balance the ethics there?
Did you hear that,
That
Charlie?
was me.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I understood it, it's how do you balance the ethics of using ChatGPT for journalism? Well, I would say use it carefully. Do not use it to create content directly for publication. It is not a source. It is not a truth machine. It doesn't know anything directly. So the best use I've seen ChatGPT is not to create that content directly, but to use it, for example, to reversion content. Or, this is a really good use case that I've heard a lot from journalists, they use it to kind of brainstorm. They say, look, I've got to do this story again. We do this story every 2 months. Can you come up with some fresh angles on this? Can you suggest perhaps different people or organizations that we could talk to? Do you know any other examples of this story from the past or elsewhere that might freshen up my journalism? And then you can go and do the real stuff. But it should always be the human in the loop, and it should always be you making the editorial judgment about whether something is important or not, and whether it's been properly verified. So I think it's basically, treat something like ChatGPT as something that can help your creativity. It can help you organize your information, but it's not a source in itself. And the cliche I always use is that it's like a very clever intern. They can be super helpful. They can often have fresh ideas. They can come up with new ways of doing things. They might have different perspectives to you, but you would always make sure that whatever they did was verified, balanced, accurate, and to the quality that you expect. So I honestly don't think it's only a problem if you use it inappropriately.
Charlie, you mentioned chatbots. Are there some newsrooms that you spoke to that are using chatbots in their initial reporting? Or is that something that they are looking to do in the future?
Yeah, it's interesting. And most of them are sort of tailoring it to their own data. So they're not just getting a chatbot and slapping their brand logo on it and asking people to ask questions. The cleverest ones are ones that are using it with just their data. So they're effectively opening up their archives in a really accessible way to their readers. And the point of that is partly it's a great service. I mean, how lovely. You can say, please could you tell me more about the East-West Centre? I'm particularly interested in the work they've been doing in the Philippines. Could you just give me a quick summary of that? And if it's your chatbot for your organisation, then you can give a really tailored answer to that. It's also handy, though, because that then tells you what your audience are interested in. If you're getting lots of people asking you about a particular story, then you think, okay, perhaps we should be doing this story. Perhaps we should be doing some extra research on this and bringing it up to date. So I think it's a neat two-way communication. We know chatbots are limited. Even with generative AI, they're relatively limited. You don't want them to be commenting on live breaking news stories, for example. So use them as a limited tool, I think. And I don't think they're going to take over, but they're great fun, of course.
And I should mention that your report does have a list of some of the resources that the newsrooms you interviewed liked and were impressed by. So do you want to mention a couple of those, or maybe we can direct people to look at the page in your report? Are there a couple that jumped out at you that people could take advantage of or check out?
Yeah, most of the examples in the report have been anonymized. commercial confidentiality, etc. But there are loads of use cases on the website, and generally you don't have to go very, very far. What's interesting is the spread of uses. This is every news organization is different, and everyone uses Gen AI differently. I mean, if you're the Financial Times and you're a global organization and your whole business model is based on data and facts, then it can be really helpful, but you want to make sure that it's really properly edited and accurate because you've got such a strong reputation. You may be a hyperlocal, and you just want to give people very personalized news for just a neighborhood in a city, and you just want to automate some of the information sources that you've got. So there's a complete spread there, and people have to think what's appropriate for them.
So I'm so sorry to keep you waiting. You have a question for our speakers?
Thank you very much. I am a China-based journalism teacher, but my question is based on my experience as a one-person band documentary filmmaker. When I watched OpenAI's most recent demonstration of its AI tools, and the device was describing the environment, I thought, well, if I were trying to cover something in a large space by myself, wouldn't it be useful to have these extra eyes that could also describe what was going on? And I'm curious whether organizations are thinking what they're doing. Have you looked into that? In other words, especially with funding decreasing for journalists, how can we have these extra observers, and is it reliable that, are organizations testing this? Charlie, is that up your alley?
Yeah, I mean, God, it's a big area. The first thing I'd say that if you're a documentary maker, yes, we work with very small organizations. We have an academy for small newsrooms, for example, about how they can use AI, because the Gen AI is actually quite low barriers to access. You can just put in a prompt and you can start to use some of these tools yourself as an individual journalist even. But as a documentary maker, I think it's an interesting one because you are absolutely about reality. Your documentaries, the word means, showing you real life. So you don't want to start using AI perhaps to create imagery, because then suddenly people don't know what's real and what's not. And that's super important for a documentary maker, and I think for journalists generally. But yeah, I can imagine that it'd be really helpful for you to be able to monitor different scenarios or sources, and then you can decide, what is the best material. I think with the whole editing process, I'm told it's making that a lot more efficient as well. It does raise, at the back of my mind immediately went to one of the problems about AI much more generally is, and this is not talking about journalism, but the idea of surveillance. And that, many governments, especially authoritarian ones, are looking at this as a great way to see what everyone's doing all the time. And I personally think that's something that we need to guard against. And it's a story that journalists need to cover. What are the limits of how much do we want AI, being used to monitor every aspect of our working and personal and social lives?
Thank you. And I will mention that, Charlie, you did say that AI has been really useful in some of the archival searches, right? I think you said AP images, you were telling me. It's made it much easier to find the images and the footage that you need, is that right?
Yeah, this is just one example, but Associated Press, their imagery archive and their current imagery is now, you can search through it using generative AI. So instead of having to have the date and the reference and the location for a particular image, you can just say, hey, I want a picture of Joe Biden wearing sunglasses, smiling, surrounded by children. And it will go and find that image, even if the image is within a video. And as somebody who used to work in television and used to have to go into the bowels of the basement to find tapes and scroll through them, and try and find the right image. This is revelatory. So I think, filmmakers, documentary makers, or just simply journalists working in a newsroom who suddenly need an image or a video. This makes it so much more easy and efficient, but also much more creative. You're not just looking for a picture of that politician. You're perhaps looking for them, as I say, dressed in a certain way or showing a certain expression, or perhaps with other people or something. So I think there's a kind of creative thing here as well for anybody that's using image related to news. And of course, because it's AP, it's going to be genuine as well.
Okay, but if you put in woman in a trapeze, and it comes up with me, then it's a deep fake. Okay, go ahead.
That's right.
First of all, thank you to Charlie and Art for presenting these tools to us. But I want to just present a different scenario. What about journalists being the victims themselves of deepfakes? Because here in the Philippines, a few of us were deepfaked. So I had a video endorsing a financial investment. A colleague had a video endorsing health supplements. We can only go as far as reporting it to Meta, but it took them a few weeks before they were able to take it down. So, what advice or what tips can you give for us journalists to whose images are out there to, protect ourselves and our news organizations also?
Art, is this something you might be able to?
Yeah, we're talking and testing our technology with a number of big tech companies and social media platforms. And I will share that it's not entirely clear as to what does the world look like with AI in it as it relates to takedown policies and whatnot. Everyone's got different standards and protocols. And so that's, I think in time, that'll get solved. But in the short term, unfortunately, it has to just be the takedown process. One of the things that we're also actively looking at is, from a technical perspective, is being able to partner with these organizations so that we can be a mediary, if you will, to look at anytime they launch a new model or new feature, we can train our models and tools and then have that be a service to other people building classifiers or takedown tools and so on. And so I think, over time that'll probably happen, whether it's us or someone else, but I think you'll see more partnership around between the social media platforms as well, because this is a very contested topic and, everyone we're talking to says that it's a number one priority. But it's really hard. I've not seen a great process on that right now. But I don't know if Charlie has seen anything on his side.
No, I think you're right, Art. I completely agree with you that this is a structural problem. It's not going to be solved by just coming up with one good little tool. And I think it does remind us that a lot of the kind of damage out there is not about political leaders and so on. It's about, for example, the use of AI to create sexual imagery of people and so on. And that can be very painful and hurtful in people's private life, especially for women. Just quick word on the attack on journalists. I think, again, here we go, yet more assaults on journalists trying to do their job. And in that sense, AI is additional to that. But of course, as journalists in the Philippines know better than anybody else, there are a whole series of tools or weapons that people will use, the law, physical threats, etc., to try and constrain good journalism. So I can only have sympathy for people out there, and it's great that people like Art are working to provide the tools, but then it's about the political will of those networks to try and protect good information.
Hi.
Hi, Koor Khuldoon Shahid from Pakistan. First of all, thank you so much for sharing all the insights. A lot of the theme of today's sessions has been how newsrooms are deploying AI to address the needs of the audience. If I may, I'd like to flip the argument and how now that the audience itself can also use AI and how that might impact newsroom. So first of all, do you have any tools in the sense that how the internet and social media revolutionized media? It became a two-way thing, right? That the audience could directly engage. But now what's happening is that a lot of the users can now spam publications with hate comments, which are now much longer in length, with better grammar, but they're still hate comments. First of all, do you have any tools and any other resources and recommendations for media, news publications to address this challenge?
Yeah, I can go first. So it kind of reminds me, one of our partners is NewsGuard. I don't know if anyone's heard of that organization. They do an amazing job, fighting misinformation through a browser extension. So we've actually worked with them to identify a lot of these content farms that you're talking about, where it's very advanced. They have real video with fake audio, vice versa. And so they're basically propagating the network with all this fake content. And it's a really big problem, for sure. And so we believe that at the end of the day, it really has to we have to keep these social media platforms accountable. And so that's really where you're going to see, because otherwise it's just whack-a-mole. If you find a piece of content, take it down, they're going to, if it's profitable for them, they're going to continue to do it somewhere else. And so I think, tools are good. And as Charlie mentioned, there's no silver bullet, in this fight. And so for now, we're really just focused on detection. But yeah, there are Charlie may know some other tools that may do specifically what you're looking for.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, very quickly, there are tools that can help you automate your moderation and so on. I think what's interesting is we are seeing a shift in people's behavior online, and it's partly, I think, in response to the amount of awful content out there that people are almost physically sick of this constant sort of froth, not just the disinformation, but just the terrible stuff. And there are, there's research evidence showing that people are increasingly avoiding participating in social media. They do see it as just too risky, and they are retreating to much more sources that they personally trust. Doesn't mean those are always the best sources. It could just be sources that align with their particular opinions and worldview and value. And again, I repeat what I said before, which is, it's the job of journalism. Don't try and force content down people's necks. Don't try and just generate loads and loads of frothy stuff, because then you won't stand out compared to the content farms that aren't mentioned. This is why we are seeing, the growth of the membership model, the subscription model, and generally the sense that news brands know that they have to provide a much better, tailored, optimized service for the people who come to them. That they have to be less hysterical, they have to be less depressing, they have to be less hostile and conflictual than the bad content out there. And I'm afraid there's just this is a long-term thing. We're not going to solve this problem overnight. The internet is a wonderful place. Social media can be a wonderful place as well. And we do tend to forget that. That's why people like it. And that's why they like these technologies. That's why they love their smartphones and always want them on and with them. And as journalists, we just have to be sensitive to that environment when we're thinking about how we get people to connect to our journalism. And as the questioner says, that means trying to create a space where people can comment without being assaulted by other people.
So
Thank you.
We're just about to run out of time, but maybe you could ask your questions, both of you, and we'll see if we have time to answer them. Maybe take another minute.
Yep. Hi, my name is Jan. I'm from Myanmar. I run a data consultancy. I have a question about the future of business models in media. So nowadays, if I go to an alternate search engine like Perplexity AI, I type a question about anything I want to find out in the world, and it gives me an LLM-generated answer, and I don't have to go to the news site, right? So if users just get their news from asking an LLM about whatever they want to know, and the LLM is aggregating answers from the news sites, are news websites going to go the way of print newspapers, where it's just a novelty thing? So like once in a while, I'll go to the front page of the New York Times, but most of the time I'm getting my content directly from a chatbot. And in that case, there's no traffic coming to the website. So what does that mean for business models?
And let's ask your question, and then hopefully we can answer them both.
Sure, mine's very different. This is a question for Art about your tool, because on the tool, when you put something in, it'll show a confidence level of whether or not it's been manipulated. I'm actually curious about whether or not you can also express confidence about authenticity. And the reason I ask about that is because there is an increasing weaponization of skepticism. And so, human rights abuses, imagery from war zones or protests, police brutality, even comments that people are making, the easy answer is, oh, that's a deep fake or that's fake. So I'm just wondering whether or not that's an area that you're also looking into.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and answer that.
Yeah. Just a really quick, yes. It's a really hard engineering problem to determine if something is factually true or not, like the context of it. But that is something that we are thinking about and trying to make some progress on. But it is really important because at the end of the day, you can have something that's AI manipulated generated, but still be factually true, right? And so, but yeah, it's. And I just think, again, this is just my personal opinion, not true media, but I just think, 3-5 years from now, everything's going to be AI generated and manipulated. So context, I think, is going to matter more than the actual, media itself.
Okay, and then Charlie, do you want to answer his question about the financing?
Business model. Yeah. I mean, this is much, if you want to be scared, this is much more scary than deepfakes. The idea, as the questioner said, that you don't theoretically need to go to a news organization for your news. But this is not new. I mean, ever since the internet came along, you could go to the source directly. You could go to other people who would aggregate information or provide information directly that weren't news organizations. So we've been living with this for a while, but I think AI, as the questioner says, makes this so easy. And I think, again, that's why it's so important that in practice, people will still want authentic, verified news that perhaps aligns with their values, that is relevant to their lives, and put into a package that is, optimal for them, be it audio or video or short form or long form, doesn't matter. But if you understand their behavior and their needs, then you can provide a service. Stop thinking of journalism as a product. It's a service that you can provide, which will be better than Perplexity or whatever. Partly because Perplexity doesn't know anything for reality. It doesn't have any emotions. It doesn't have any judgment. But also, I don't think it can put together that package. Do you want to spend all your life, asking chatbots about the news? Or would you just like it beautifully served up in a, interactive, convenient format by people that you think are trustworthy, entertaining, and informed? So I still think there's going to be this thing called journalism will survive, but whether it's going to be a business that makes money, well, that's something we're struggling with at the moment, aren't we?
So thank you for your question, and thank you, Charlie, for zooming in. I'm going to call you Uncle AI from now on. You're very reassuring. Sign up to his newsletter. Thank you, Art, and to True Media, and to the East West Center, and the amazing team that has helped put on this incredible first day, and of course to the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. So now I think we can go eat. So thank you so much. It's been a great day. And to Raimi.